Yep, it's me again, once again talking about how Hoyoverse can buff another character. Now I'm going straight into the disclaimer for this one. I think Luocha is still a very good unit who can sustain pretty much all content in the game, but just because he's good doesn't mean he's the best, and it definitely doesn't mean he can't be buffed in some way in the future. And at the end of the day, this video is just for some fun discussion of the future of characters in HSR. It's nothing you have to take too seriously. Okay, now that that's out of the way, if people are still commenting what the are you talking about, Luocha is fine, I give you permission to make fun of them for not even watching the first 30 seconds of this video. Well, why could Luocha do with a buff? To put it simply, he's already been outclassed, and it's only going to get worse as sustainers keep getting stronger. When Star Rail first released, Luocha was arguably the single most valuable character players could have up until 1.3 when Fushan released. And even then, endgame content requires 2 teams, so he didn't really start getting pushed out until Hoyo in 1.5. Well, why was he so valuable back then? To put it simply, our 5-star sustainers are just a lot better than our 4-star ones. This isn't Genshin Impact where you can just hit people with a quick skill issue for not dodging and move on. Enemies will always get their attacks off, and it's your sustainer's job to keep your team alive through it. Our 4-star healers not only have lower healing multipliers most of the time, but will also need to churn through skill points to keep people alive, which makes it even worse. Well, unlike our 4-stars, Luocha's kit is built perfectly to be an amazing sustainer. His skill is a massive heal that can get auto-casted without even using a skill point when teammates drop below half health. Every time he uses an ability, he stacks his talent, and when at 2 stacks, he deploys a field that means when someone attacks an enemy, everyone on the team gets healed, with the attacking ally getting healed an even bigger amount. His whole kit comes together to become this fully skill point positive character with plenty of massive heals and debuff removals. Well, Luocha's sounding pretty good right now, isn't he? How in the world has he been outclassed? Well, if you didn't notice, every amazing thing I mentioned about his kit is purely defensive. Luocha is pretty equal to our other limited sustainers in the ability to keep your team alive, but he lacks anything else. Other than Simulated Universe, which is mainly the blessings anyway, all the endgame in HSR is speed based. Memory of Chaos requires you to clear in at least 10 cycles to get the max rewards, Pure Fiction requires you to get 60,000 points before the 4 cycle limit, and I wouldn't be surprised if something similar was in the new Apocalyptic Shadow coming in 2.3. This means if all the limited sustainers can keep you alive, which with the ones in the game currently they all can, the best way to compare them is how much offense and utility they provide to the team. This is where Luocha is kinda lacking. Other than his luscious blonde mane, he only has 2 things over the other sustainers. He still is the best at generating skill points since his heal is completely passive, especially if you're using the multiplication light cone, and he has a very unique AoE buff removal in his ultimate. Now unfortunately, this buff removal currently is very niche, as it's really only useful against this Sanctus Medicus enemy, and while his skill point generation is good, it isn't like the other sustainers are eating away at skill points anyway. Now you compare this to the other limited sustains, Fushan gives 12% crit rate, Hoyo has 40% attack buff and 20% energy regen, and Aventurine has his ult debuff and his own personal damage. Now these offensive abilities aren't absurd, they aren't going to take multiple cycles off your clear time, but you're comparing these buffs to the basically nothing that Luocha is providing. Now before we get into how we could buff him, what I want you guys to do is scroll down, drop a like and subscribe, and type in a comment how you think Hoyo could buff Luocha, and let's see if we have the same ideas. If you don't want to type anything, well, just think it in your head and comment a little party emoji if you got the same ideas as me. Okay, that's enough criticism of Luocha. How the hell do we juice him up? Now in case you haven't seen any of my similar videos talking about buffing characters, when Hoyo tries to make older characters more relevant again, they normally do it through adding new ones that help them or by adding new game modes. An easy example of this is with how Pure Fiction revived Herder and Himiko, and how Jingyuan got his Harem or Shanjo ladies and Sparkle to make his strength lore accurate. Now for Luocha, I think the best and most interesting way we can buff him is to look at our open world counterpart Genshin. Genshin's solution to buffing older healing focused characters was the addition of the Hydro Archon Farina. The way Farina works is that her skill summons 3 Hydro turrets, and when these turrets hits enemies, she drains her entire team's health, similar to how Jingliu works. For every time one of these turrets hits, this drain keeps going until your teammate's health gets to 50% and then it stops. The way her ult works is when you use it, it starts keeping track of HP changes in the team and gives an amount of damage percent depending on the amount of changes. Now, because Furina herself is draining her team's health, to maximize her buff, which is really good, she needs an AoE healer on the team. This saw the rise of many healers that had fallen out of meta, like Jean, who, let's be honest, was pretty useless, but now is genuinely a valuable unit because of Furina's existence. Now back to Luocha. What if HSR releases a character with similar mechanics? Imagine a Harmony unit whose skill gives damage percent to everyone on the team, but while this is active every time an ally takes a turn, they also lose 5% of their HP, and it stops if they hit 50% HP. Their ultimate could work pretty much exactly like Furina's, so once you use it, it starts tracking the HP changes in the team, and the more your HP fluctuates, the more, let's say, crit she gives to everyone. Now with a character like this, if their buff is really good, which it should be since you're sacrificing HP for it, they're really gonna want a comfortable healer on the team. Not only so your characters don't just drop dead all the time, but also so the massive heals help stack her buffs faster. And yes, this would probably make Hoyo even stronger as well, but it would make Luocha a bit more relevant since I do think his sustain is a bit more comfortable than Hoyo's. It also gives some relevance back to our really basic healers like Bailu, as this is more of a buff that just helps all healers instead of Luocha specifically. Now our next buff I believe can come from the relics. Currently we only have 2 relevant support relics, one being the messenger set and the other being the watchmaker set. The messenger relic set is very good, but mainly because of the 2-piece. Every support benefits from a 6% speed very much, as you're generally going to be building them as fast as possible. But the 4-piece effect, in my opinion, is a bit overrated. Normally endgame players should be building characters for speed breakpoints anyway, so this extra speed is useless, and not to mention Luocha can't activate this effect anyway. The Watchmaker set is actually a really good relic set, but it's only useful for teams that can benefit off the break effect, and once again Luocha also can't activate the 4-piece effect. Now I'm in a bit of a plagiarizing mood today, so we're gonna steal from Genshin again. HSR could introduce a relic set that converts healing to damage. We have 2 ways we can go with this. The first is similar to Genshin's Ocean Hued Clam set, where healing is converted to personal damage for the healer. The way it works in Genshin is that healing done is accumulated into this bubble, and every so often this bubble will pop and do some damage in an AoE around the character. In Star Rail, we could easily do a similar thing. The relic set could accumulate healing done by the character, and every 2 turns, when Luocha's turn starts, the relic set would do a mini AoE damage ability that does damage based on the healing accumulated. Now the second way relics can help is adding a set that converts healing to damage again, but this time to your other characters. Songs of Day Past is a newer artifact set in Genshin that converts overflowed healing into damage for your on-fielder. Now we don't have anything like an on-fielder in this game, so how about everyone gets this bonus damage? With this relic set, when Luocha heals, this healing would be accumulated, and the more healing done, the more damage percent your team receives. So basically Furina if she got demoted to being a relic set. Now these buffs I've been talking about don't really just buff Luocha, but also help out other healers as well, like Hoyo or even Bailu. So let's talk about one that only helps Luocha. Well, the one thing Luocha has specific to himself out of the other sustains is an AoE buff removal in his ult. If Hoyoverse starts adding enemies that have really powerful buffs, whether they just do more damage, take less damage, or revive like the Sanctus Medicus we already have, Luocha becomes infinitely more valuable. And to make it even more relevant so people don't just run Pella instead, make small adds that have buffs that need to be removed so Luocha's AoE one is even better. Currently the Sanctus Medicus enemy, you don't really need to remove his buff as well, because you can either just rush his weakness bar down, especially with Ranmei, or you can just kill him before he takes his turn. But if really strong buffs start getting added to, let's say, boss fights, where killing them quickly is no longer an option, then Luocha would genuinely have an edge over the other sustains. Now just a final reminder, Luocha is by no means a bad character. He's good enough for every single piece of content in the game. Just because he's good doesn't mean he hasn't been outclassed, so there is definitely room for him to be buffed and improved as a character. And even if you don't agree with that statement at all, just take this video as a fun discussion of how Hoyo could hypothetically make Luocha even more valuable than he already is. I've been really enjoying making these how Hoyo could buff videos, and I think you guys seem to like them too. So in the comments, let me know what characters you would like to see me talk about next. And before you guys go, make sure you drop a like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.